Alrighty folks, want to welcome you back to another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. For this video, I wanted to cover something I mentioned in the motherboard video. This is, again, 2022, 2023, starting recaps of where technology's been, where we're headed, where we're at kind of today. Went through the motherboard and showed you all the ports that you can add in cards. Old days, that's where you really used to do most of your upgrades. You buy a motherboard that had a pretty much generic sound, had video card integrated or not integrated, and then you went to these things over here. All your add-on cards. How many drives did you want? What size case? I'll be doing a video on that due to all of this, to go through some of that, to explain some of this. What size case do you have? That depended on how many kind of drives you wanted to have in there. It's not like today with the smaller M.2 and SATAs. M.2s can actually go on the motherboard, have an add-on card. You can add 10 or 15 on an add-on card. You can have a lot of drives. SATA drives, you can actually put 2 in a standard bay. You can put a lot of stuff in there. Well, if you bought a big full tower case like I used to have, it would be about yay tall. You would add these, so you can run your IEV cables off of them. Of course, then you had to have a big enough power supply, enough cables, maybe splitters, whatever you got to do to power those drives. You would add these to add more drives, because the motherboard would not have the ports on them. You'd add these into the slots. Of course, that goes back to your motherboard design. What motherboard you wanted. Because if you know you needed to add 4 or 5 of these, something like this, a NIC card, even a modem back then, that could have been on there. 4-port NIC. This is more of a server edition. Of course, you got your video card, capture card, of course, and then you go for the big boy audios with the multiple color jacks for different ports, bass, subwoofer, left, right, front. Okay, there's 4 more cards plus 4 of these. You need to have 8 slots. What style slots? This is where the motherboard choice came in. What kind of CPU you're using, what kind of power supply you're using, what kind of case you're using. So these are some of those variables that are out there. Nowadays you can get motherboards that pretty much have a whole bunch of that stuff all integrated in it and all of that. And you don't really need to add anything like this. Of course, you can get these cards that have SATA adapters on them. They have 8, 10, I think 12, 15 different, where you can plug into one card. So I wanted to go through and show some of this stuff so people understand where the old tech was and how you did it. And of course, you have the full bay, half bay, and I think 3/4 bay. That's how long these are. How much space. They have different brackets. I don't think I have any of the small ones here. But there's different styles. Now when you buy like a NIC card, you get 2 of these. You can change that out for if it's the smaller with case or the bigger. So there's different variables here. Especially when you get into video cards. That is where you're going to run into a lot of this. Knowing the depth of your case, how wide it is, what the back plate is. When you look, you'll see little short, big, thick ones. You'll see the big one, longer ones that are long. You got to know all of that. Back in the old days, 4-port NIC. Who would have thought? These were out there. This isn't something new. This is something a lot of people are now going to multiple NICs to do different things. You can run 2 lines to the same switch and router just for load balancing. Not to mention to have different networks, sub-networks, all this different stuff on your network, different IP ranges, all this different stuff to one computer through one network card. Of course, you can go online now and find these little styles with 2 or 3 or 4 on them. They're not those big giant cards anymore. I've used quite a few that have the 2 NICs on one little card. And of course, the old-fashioned video. Look how much different it was. It had the capture card on it. It had all this type of stuff on there. Little simple little fan. That looks like it's broken, burned out. All the capacitors. What the outputs are. They used to have a little plug-in modular that would have the different ends on it. So you can plug in your RCA, your different stuff. Your output, your input. Different things like that. That's a rare port to find anymore. Your game port. Where you put your controllers. Everything's USB now. So, you used to be able to buy just controller cards just for hooking up joysticks, steering wheels, flight sticks. Hook up multiple to it. Depending on, of course, if you're a gamer. That's gaming tech. So, that stuff used to be added on. Old style video card. Here's another one with a capture card. Really old tech. The other one at least had DVI. This one doesn't. And of course, there's the oldie but goodie. So I wanted to go through and just do kind of a short little video on where the add-on cards used to be. Because I talked about those ports. The slots on the board. This is what goes on those slots on the board. Some of these, I don't believe it's any of the, it's this way. Actually needed a power connector. The floppy drive power connector to the video card to give it power. This is back then. This is really an old card. Some of the old cards you can go back and research, they do need a power cable. Of course, the new ones nowadays take 3 or 4 power cables or this new weird pin structure that is causing problems and meltdowns and all kinds of other things. But they did take power back then too. So that isn't anything new within the last couple generations of video cards. So I wanted to show that also because I hear a lot of things out there about, oh, you know, it takes too much voltage and, you know, I used to run one that didn't have this, it didn't do. I've shown you other video cards here that did not need the power connection. That don't need a power connection. That one did. One of the other things they used to have when you put in, this is Sound Blaster, sound card. You had to actually run audio cables from your sound card to your video card internally. There were different cables you'd have to run between these two. It wasn't the motherboard handling all of that audio. Nowadays, the bus and the ports handle all that transfer between the two. So that's one of the interesting factors that has changed that I wanted to go through and show. Because probably not a lot of people know that. So these are some of the things that when you talk about the motherboard the channels, the busts, the sockets, all of those type of things. That's how these all are in effect. Because now you put in a video card that has an HDMI out. That's video. Where does it get its audio from? Usually it has an audio card on the motherboard itself, or an additional, or it has some kind of chips inside that handles that, but most of it's video. So the port that's actually plugged into is not only doing the processing and doing everything else, it's actually transferring that audio, it's transferring other things with that goes out that HDMI line. So, wanted to touch base on that is a difference in the technology where how things have changed. So, I wanted to go through and do a little short video on add-on cards because odds are not a whole lot of people are going to be adding add-on cards to a computer. Most people, if they add on nowadays, it is going to be a video card. You're upgrading your video card. Unless you get into a rare situation with additional NICs. And that goes into a whole nother networking issue, whole lot deeper on why you'd want to do that, how you do that, and reasons why. Sometimes it's just as simple as having an internal network and an external network. You have all your printers and all your other things on an internal that don't have any internet access. One NIC handles internet, one handles internal. A lot of people do that because of bandwidth. If you want to print, you want to do other things, it's not tying up your other NIC card. That's really what got this going, was the old 10100 NICs. You would have two of them in there. Once you went to gigabit, that pretty much eliminated all of that problem because of internet speeds being so slow. You did not use the full gigabit out to the internet. Internet speeds are going up, going up, going up, going up. This is now an option again of putting two NICs in, have two routers. One could be wireless, one could be just a standard router where you can run out, or probably a wireless, two wireless, so it can handle IPs and do all of that type of stuff, and run out to printers and other options. So there's other things you can do now with having multiple NICs, and why this might be coming back sooner than later because of internet speeds being so much. Streaming, all that type of stuff. Web service, hostings, all kinds of stuff you can do now. So I will wrap this one up. Thank everybody for watching. But I wanted to go through and actually show add-on cards because I know I've talked about those ports, but I did not actually go through what you can actually do and show you all of that. Of course, there's more than this. You can add FireWire, you can add USB ports, you can add, what else? Multiple video cards. You can do a lot of things with those ports nowadays. If you go look, I'm sure you'll find something to do with whatever you want to do. Put a modem in there so you can send faxes. You can still use modems. So you can send a fax from your computer through the phone line. If you actually have a phone line. A lot of options you can do. So wanted to go through and actually show these because I believe that's something that's not really talked about a whole lot anymore. That you have the flexibility, if you have these ports and you have these slots, to do things with it. You can add on, you can do things. It's more flexible. So here's a quick little oversight so you can see, touch a little bit about video, a little bit about everything. So again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you forward out the post on Facebook, Twitter, everything else out there. Repost it. Send it to people you know. Get the word out. Have them all come over and subscribe so I can get more of these videos going. Get more information out there. Thank you so much.